afternoon, and welcome to our Glendale City Council workshop. This meeting is for council members to review and discuss important issues, projects, and future council meeting agenda items. It's a work-study session only and allows the council to hear input from city staff. No action will be taken at this workshop, and there will not be an opportunity for public comment. This meeting is streaming live on Glendale's Facebook and YouTube pages and the city's cable television station, Glendale Channel 11. Thank you for joining us.
And good afternoon. Welcome to Glendale City Council Workshop Session, February 24th, 2026. This meeting is called to order. I'm not going to call roll call because everybody's here. So if you'd take note of that.
And welcome to our Glendale City Council workshop.
And we'll wait for her.
This meeting is for council members to review and discuss
Okay.
issues.
All right, Ms. Bauer, would you introduce item number 1 for us so we can get going?
Downtown Campus Reinvestment Project Update.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. On behalf of the entire DCRP team, this is update number 40 for the DCRP. So we've had several updates in the past, and we've talked a little bit about, as we're getting closer to the finish line, but we truly are getting closer to that finish line. We're a month closer now. And this particular presentation is going to talk a little bit more about some of the perimeter site activities going on, specifically Murphy Park. And then more importantly, from the last workshop we had, there was many questions that came up about the garden level. So I wanted to highlight some of the progress that's going on there. And then a couple other features as the buildings getting more complete. So with that, this is this month's presentation. So the first slide that you see in front of you is the plaza entrance. And this is essentially the tree planting is going in around the perimeter right now, and a lot of it is just due to the nature of coordinating the hardscape and concrete with the planting areas. But we are now getting trees positioned around the building, and in this case, the plaza entrance right now, the formwork is going on to build the stairs and the concrete deck that will formalize the entire entry sequence from the garage to the front door. And so this is just a little bit of a view that you'll see when you come up the steps for the first time. That pour is going to be happening in the very near future, if not next week. So in the panels that you see in front of you that are covered in that's actually a protective coating. This is the white coating that you see on those panels. That's just a protective layer so that when they pour concrete around it that we don't damage anything. But those will be peeled off and you'll see the metal skin color. If you walk around the building now along Glendale Avenue, you can start to see how the hardscape is taking real form now. The base of the building will have planting around it, so where you see that concrete plinth around the glazed area, that'll all be planting. And then right where the bus lane is, in between the bus lane and that planting area is a sidewalk. So all that's going to be built in the very near future. We're talking the next 10 days or so to get that put together. There will be some additional road closures on Glendale Avenue starting tomorrow for about 2 to 3 weeks. It could go a full month, but part of that is to allow for the contractors to build the entrance to what we call the pedestrian walkway, which is also a fire lane for the project. And that separates the City Hall complex from Murphy Park. So they're going to start doing that activity. So if you see or hear things about traffic being slowed in that area, it's really for that location. So, but all that's gone through the review process. So it's just a part of the coordinating the work from the next couple weeks. If we start to walk further towards the east, this is all brand new sidewalks that are going around the perimeter of Murphy Park. So in the previous updates, we've had a lot of electrical work that's been done, underground utilities and things that are serving the park on the edge. This actually shows the hardscape as we move around the corners. So this is all brand new concrete. And then as we turn the corner onto 58th, heading north now, this is against where all those olive trees are. Again, brand new sidewalk, new electrical work that's being done for the poles and lighting. And then when we get even closer to the Velma Teague Library, this was one of the main reasons why we had to close the library for a few weeks, is to pour this new entry sequence from 58th to the front door of Velma Teague Library. So it is a much wider concrete walkway than before, but the little sort of little islands that you see on either side of the walkway are for benches, and then the landscape will go around that. So fencing will be moved to accommodate when the library opens, so that the access is now clear into the front door of Velmateague. So right now, this was given back to the park, so we do all this work. But as this is winding down, we're anticipating the opening of the Velmateague Library very shortly. There's a few other things going on internally with the project. For Velmateague specifically, there's some mechanical work that's being done that could potentially go a little bit longer than we've anticipated. But as far as the site work that was needed to get to the building, that's been completed. Okay, so now we're going to move over to the amphitheater. And this picture is probably about 10 days or just maybe 7 to 10 days now. So this is showing you the formwork of the seating bowl, and this is the top of the seating bowl where we have these concrete retaining walls, and right behind it is where the lawn is going to be. So all this formwork is being set up for the pours. You can see on the right-hand side of the photo, that's an example of what's being poured once the forms come off. It's essentially a retaining wall and a bench. And so those are all finished concrete pieces. And then this is from the front side of it. You can see all the permanent bench seating, and then you can see where those seat walls that support the lawn in the back. It's coming along quite well. I think the theme right now for what we're seeing on site as we go through these photographs, it's all flat work. So it's a lot of concrete. So in the next month and a half, you'll see quite a bit of concrete work that's going on the site. So, and some of this is early morning. They bring trucks in and they pump it, and they'll get it all poured in, and then they finish it throughout the day. And then there's a specific finish that goes on top of the concrete. So all that work is just ongoing from the sidewalks into the amphitheater and now into what we call the pedestrian and fire lane piece. So that's going to go on for the next several weeks. Now, this is something you were interested in before. This is the guarding level. So we're going to move inside to the building now. So this is where we are. So when this photograph was taken, the crews were putting tile down in the main lobby area where the elevators are, and this is the stair that goes up on the north side. So this is looking from your interior suite towards the main lobby area of your floor. So we now have lighting. We have not just prime coat anymore. This is actually the finish coat. We have millwork in. As you see on the right side of the photograph, there's some cabinetry there. And since this photograph is taken, the carpet has now been laid. So we are gaining some serious steam here on your floor. So all electrical is in, overhead's going in, we have permanent power in, and light fixtures are active. This is taken from just outside the mayor's office conference room area, actually, looking towards the main entrance into the suite. And you can see, again, this is where the tile work was going on this particular morning. But as you move around the corner, here's your offices. So again, all electrified, but they didn't make the update for this submission on Friday, but we do have carpet, like I said, in the space now. This is the clerk's area. So this is walking in what would be a pair of doors coming into a glazed lobby area. And then there'll be some workstations immediately in front, and then around the corner will be some closed offices. But again, the millwork is there, lighting is there, ceilings are there. One of the last things they'll do is drop ceiling tile, so it's going to be a little while before the actual ceiling's in place. But all of the major rough work is done. It's from this point on, it's finishes. And just outside of the council area, we have what we call the board and commissions area, which is really, it's a multi-purpose room that can be used for a variety of purposes. But the intention is that we'll have furniture here, essentially a set of tables and rows of chairs for presentation, some AV technology on the wall so we can have presentations and sessions with the boards and commissions. But it can also serve as a multi-purpose space where that furniture can be moved around, rolled out of the way, and just used as an open space. The gallery wall is immediately adjoining to it on the right. So whether it's being used for board and commissions or not, there's a gallery wall. This is the wall that the Glendale, Arizona Historical Society is working on with ASU to work on content to be displayed. So there'll be some track lighting that gets installed, but that whole wall will essentially be a presentation wall for artifacts and so forth. So between boards and commission, an executive conference room, and your suite, all of that will be tied together with that gallery wall.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Garcia. the Board of the Commission space, is that going to be enclosed at all, or that's going to be completely open?
Mayor and Council, Councilmember Tomolchoff, it is open in this configuration for the flexibility of that space. The formality, if it becomes something that, to our understanding programmatically, if it needed something more formal, that we would use the council chambers for that.
I'm not talking about formal. I'm talking about if a Board and Commission needed to go into executive session, where would they do that?
Mayor and Council, Councilmember Tomolchoff, there's several choices. If they would like to go into a session, they can use the conference room immediately adjacent to the space, which is literally right behind that wall. And it's a pretty sizable room, and it's closed in completely. So,
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then just around the corner, this is on the opposite side wall of the board and the commission space. This is our call center. So right now it's been mostly staged for equipment and tools and so forth, but as of this time, it's been cleaned up, so we have carpet going down. And again, the ceilings are going to be coming in here shortly. We'll have some technologies on the wall to help with, what's the sort of the call list that's going on, so all the people in the room can see what the flow of calls are coming in on. But it's coming along. It's really almost done. On the lower level, this is the fitness area and the wellness center. Most of those walls have been primed since then, and at this point, electrical work is going on the ceilings. It is the further behind the normal floors because this is primarily where we have our archive storage, lockers, training rooms, etc. So, but we're not concerned as far as how that's progressing. We're seeing it pretty much on track with our April 14th deadline for substantial completion.
On slide 14, if you go back one, the call center, what exactly is the call center?
Mayor and Council, this is essentially for our budget and finance team.
Okay.
And specifically, if, I think our director's here today, but if you would like to know more about that, I'm sure he can come up and say something. But this is just for their purposes for taking calls.
Mayor, members of council, this is where people call in to set up their utility accounts, any customer service issues that they may have with either water, sewer, or trash pickup. Also, a lot of people call in and actually pay their bill via phone call as opposed to mailing and or setting it up, paying it on the web. So that's primarily what they do. Also, just questions about their bill and things like that. They call customer service.
Okay, yeah, and I wanted to clarify that because most people, when you hear call center, first thing you think is police department. I just want to make sure everybody understood this is for all the business that has to happen to keep things moving.
Correct, and they take a lot of calls that come in when people don't know who to call, and then they redirect those calls to the appropriate department.
Perfect.
Back to the lower level, just shows you the elevator lobbies are under works right now, and this is our training room. It holds about 60 plus folks in there for training purposes, and that's going to be for the entire use of the building. As we move upstairs now, the level one, much more progress on our first floor. You can begin to see the one-stop shop, the millwork that's going in. That's all the counter space. We have lighting going in on the perimeter. Most of the finish work on the drywall is done. It's now about just painting. The big push at this point is the flooring. So we're going to be pouring the floor in the next couple weeks. It could be a little bit longer. It's going to be towards the back half of March. But that'll just bring it all to a close, and then we can get back to the ceilings and button that up. But the space it's getting pretty close.
And you said pouring the floor?
Right. So Mayor and Council, there's a product that we're using. It's a liquefied cementitious type product that gets put onto the floor as a finish. It's almost like a liquid terrazzo looking component to it, and that's the finish of the floor itself.
Really shiny, yeah.
You can polish it, and then there'll also be a inset of carpet in the middle of the room in the space itself. So that's where we have some furniture, and that's where we'll have our desks to meet meet with folks and people there on the with our teams.
So thank you, Mayor. So the lobby floor is going to be basically treated concrete floor?
Mayor and Council, Councilmember Tomolchoff, it's more of like a synthetic, I wouldn't call it concrete. But it's in the family of it. It's more of a finished, how do I best explain it? It's more like, it's like you might see on a countertop where it looks like a polished piece of tile, but it's all uniformed all the way across the entire flooring itself.
I'm not familiar with it.
No seams. You see it in garages a lot.
It's in that family, Mayor and Council, but if you need to see a photograph or an example of what it looks like, I can obviously do that on this, outside the meeting. Mhm. And as we move up the rest of the floors, moving up from 2 to 4 now, level 2 has been punched out and ready for furniture. And so in the last week and a half, have now furniture installed on level 2. Level 3, there's just additional furniture that's going in. This happens to be on the left side, the breakout area. So various different kinds of modalities of furnishings here, depending on the kind of work we're going to be doing. On the right side is just an example of workstations and offices on the 3rd floor. Level 4 is mostly complete. At this point, we'll be starting to install the technology like the flat panels on the walls and so forth. That's starting to be delivered, I believe, this week and part of next week. And then after that, it's just floor-by-floor installation as the deliveries come in. This is something different that you have not seen just yet. So we're going to move into council chambers. This is what we call a dance floor, and it's not, literally a dance floor, but in the construction side, they call them dance floors because they build essentially a subfloor to access things on. So it's by building another platform, essentially. So you can see your dais here below all this scaffolding. And this is for using a scaffold system so we can get to the ceilings. So there's been a lot of work that's been done on the ceiling. There's been new lighting, some mechanical openings. There's a lot of some old legacy patches and things that were done. So we felt pretty strongly that it made sense to go ahead and essentially reskim the ceiling and paint it out so it looks fresh and uniformed with all this work that we've done. We just felt that it was important to do that. It wasn't not necessarily in the scope originally, but it was part of something as a contingency just in case. So that's what this is about. And we're going to be installing some theater lighting in here that'll help support the dais. And then so when you're on camera, that all your faces and lighting and everything will help improve that for camera. So that's coming. Speaking of lighting, you haven't also seen this just yet either. This is an example of, this was done about a week and a half ago, maybe 2, early morning, like 6 o'clock, 6:30 on a Wednesday. And what you're seeing here is the architectural feature lighting that supports the roof screen wall. And that is all a colored lighting system, changeable colored lighting system that goes around the entire perimeter of that screen wall. So this is an example of the flexibility we have in color changing technology to do that. So they can be thematic. We don't know the full, what it's fully capable just yet. What we can program, how many different ways you can program it. But this was really to test to see if we had the proper angles so that when it's on, that it's very uniform. So this is a couple examples of how that is going to look. It's pretty exciting because we haven't seen this before, and this is one of these things we wanted to test out, but we're pretty excited about how that's turning out. Okay, so here we are with what's been in progress. We've gone over that pretty well. But for next month, again, more concrete work is going to go on. The amphitheater stage is going to be poured. And shortly after that, we're going to be working on all the equipment that goes to support the amphitheater stage. And then back to Murphy Park and more on the hardscape again. So as we move into March, we still feel like we're in a pretty good spot for our completion dates. This, again, I will caveat again, that's not to say the building is complete. We will still be doing some punch work and some other finishes throughout the entire project. But for the main buildings, we want to try to reach our substantial completion on April 14th, the park on May 15th. And then again, everywhere in between, we're still going to be, buttoning up and refining a few things, but quite a bit of work. And I think the team has just really been doing a fantastic job of keeping up with everything. With that, that's our presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Garcia, thank you for the presentation. I really, really like, in the construction, we see, not to sound insulting, but like I've seen this. But the light feature on the top of the building for me is one of those like things that make you pop. So like when the Cardinals win the Super Bowl, we can make them red. When the Suns win the championship, we can make them purple. For Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we can make it pink. So all those things that other cities have the opportunity where they light up the skyline, and you see it on Monday Night Football, and you know they're doing this and that and this and that. Now because we now will have the ability to do that, that's a really, really amazing feature that people don't really recognize how awesome that is. So thank you for whoever decided to do that, and the thought process, and it looks amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So on slide 4, I guess we don't really need to look at the slide, but you can see if you look at the cafe lighting, and I know that the cafe lighting along Glendale Avenue was not functional due to some electrical issues that were, I think we discussed going to be addressed as part of the construction happening on the campus. And so I just wanted to make sure that that doesn't get skipped over or missed, that whatever the problems are, why the cafe lighting doesn't light up, that's being addressed before we cover everything up.
Mayor and Council, Councilman Talmachoff, we will definitely continue to look into that. I mean, we are still, I would say halfway into the Murphy Park construction. And so as things become more clear to us, pathways, electrifying, we need to make sure all that stuff's working. And we'll work with our internal departments to make sure that if there's any legacy things that we weren't aware of, that we at least be addressed then.
Okay.
So it's definitely on our list. We appreciate the reminder.
It's important to the downtown merchants, I know, and they only, I think, worked for a short time. So, and I mean, it's kind of a common downtown placemaking feature. So I'd like to make sure that those are working. Thank you.
Can you tell us when the council chambers is expected to be used or available for use?
Mayor and Council, there's a couple things on that. So as far as the construction schedule goes and the scope of work that we have, we are trying to complete all that ahead of middle of June. However, the technology side of it, although 90% it will be in place, the testing of it all might take some more time. So we might have to push into the first meeting in August potentially to use it, although we're trying to see if we can improve upon that. But I think we would feel more comfortable making sure everything is properly working ahead of the first meeting in council. But as far as the construction activities go, we're shooting for that middle of June period.
Well, and the July time period would give you a good chance to really work all the bugs out if there are any.
We would agree, sir.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. In a previous DCRP update, global challenges were cited as a challenge to the price and timeline of this project. In the near future, I would like to know what the specific price tag is of any of the illegal global blanket tariffs that were on steel, aluminum, or other imported materials, and how much that specifically affected the overall price of this project. So I would like to have that in a future update. Thank you.
That all you got?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Bauer, item 2, if you would.
U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development Loan Portfolio.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Matthew Hess, Deputy Director of Community Services, Levi Gibson, Director of Budget and Finance, will be presenting alongside me today regarding our Housing and Urban Development, better known as HUD, funded loan portfolio. We'll share the purpose and background, loan portfolio composition and servicing, recommended actions to build a portfolio's efficiency and effectiveness, grant impacts and benefits, and request consensus. Many of these loans were created to expand housing stability, rehab homes to create safe places to call home for residents, and provide opportunities for new home buyers. We began providing these loans in the late 1970s and have since served hundreds of residents since inception. The funding sources used were community development block grants, home investment partnership programs, and neighborhood stabilization program, all of which are HUD-eligible spending. The programs assisted low-income residents with homeowner repairs, the replacement of substandard single-family homes, and first-time home buyer assistance, amongst others. Doing a lot, really, to assist families who qualified. And I'll hand this over to Matt to share more about the background.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Before we get into some of the details of the portfolio itself and the recommendations, just to let you know how we got here, some of the issues and the challenges that we're facing around the structure and the administration of this loan portfolio. So as we'll discuss in future slides, many of these loans are older than 30 years old, which is not consistent with standard lending practice. As Kimberly mentioned, a lot of the loans were originated for home repairs, and in that time, particularly for those older loans, a lot of those improvements are since past their useful life. Also, we have some challenges around tracking ownership. Occasionally, you will see, especially with particular types of loans, if someone passes away, for example, family members will move in, and we will not know of any kind of change of occupancy or ownership, so that makes it difficult to track. We also currently use a third-party vendor to service these loans, and the amount that we are collecting in remittances on those loans is essentially less than what we are actually paying for that service. So we have turned to a new platform that we've been working on to be able to track those loans internally. It's called Neighborly. We anticipate in the next few months that we will be able to import all that information into the new system. And all of these issues were noted in an internal audit finding, and should the council provide us with consensus direction to implement our recommendations, then these would address that internal audit finding. So to start on the composition of the portfolio itself, we are talking about 3 types of loans today. So you have deferred, forgivable, and repayable. So deferred loans, if you think about it, the most simple way is they're kind of forever loans. So there is no regular payment, there is no interest. They basically stay on people's title as liens until they are voluntarily repaid back through either the sale or transfer of the title to that loan. We also have forgivable loans, which essentially depreciate on an annual basis over the term of that loan. So for example, if there was a $10,000 loan with a 10-year term, $1,000 of that loan would be depreciated until the balance is down to 0. We also have a handful of repayable loans, some with or without interest amortizing or not. And those loans total about $200,000. Something else to note is that we do have escrow accounts attached to all types of loans, and so those escrows, as is typical for a mortgage, are being used to pay not only for principal repayments like a typical mortgage, but also for taxes and insurance as well. And I will turn it over to Mr. Gibson to describe the portfolio.
Thank you, Mr. Hess. Mayor and Council, so this slide summarizes the city's HUD portfolio as of the end of fiscal year 25-26. So in total, we administer about 148 loans with an outstanding balance of approximately $3.5 million. So of that amount, $2.2 million, that represents 60 deferred loans. As you heard on the previous slide, deferred loans require no monthly payment and are typically repaid upon the sale or transfer of the property. We have about $1.1 million that represents 82 forgivable loans, and those are structured to depreciate over time. We have approximately $200,000 that represents 6 repayable loans that have scheduled payments. So even though the total amount isn't large, the different loan types make it more complicated to manage and administratively burdensome. So this breakdown helps frame the recommended actions that will be presented on the next slide that will help us focus on simplifying the portfolio, reducing servicing costs, and improving administrative efficiency.
So based on these criteria, staff are recommending for council's consideration to, one, remove all escrows from all loan types. That would remove that loan servicing requirement. And then in terms of the loans themselves, essentially standardize everything into a forgivable format. So for the deferred loans, that would have a 30-year term retroactive to the original origination date. The repayable loans would be the same, but we would retain the existing term. We would keep forgivable loans as are with no changes whatsoever. We would then be able to cancel our external vendor service contract and transition the management of the loans to internal staffing. So in terms of the impact on our grants, before I get into some of these details, just make note that these are loan funds, and so anything that comes back to us, regardless of the loan type, is something we call program income. Essentially, we are required to spend that money on a HUD-eligible activity that was essentially eligible under the grant that originated the loan. So there are limitations on what we can use the money that is coming back. So if the council was to provide us with consensus direction to move forward with these recommendations, all deferred loans that are 30 years or older would essentially be forgiven. They would be fully depreciated down to zero. The value of that is just under $300,000, about 13% of the overall $2.2 million balance. Any loan that is less than 30 years old, there would be no immediate impact. We would forgive down to whatever the remaining term of the loan is, and then it would just basically be forgiven over the remainder of that term. In terms of the forgivable loans, because the recommendation is not to modify them in any way, there would be no grant impact at all, and we would continue to forgive those over the existing term. For the repayable loans, if they were to become forgivable, there also would not be any immediate grant impact. They would essentially be treated or become a lot like the forgivable loans. So there would be no immediate impact. However, a possible impact up to $209,000 could be incurred over time if those borrowers chose to repay them before they were fully depreciated. Also, in terms of the impact is the amortizing loans. We estimate about $70,000 in interest for those loans over the next 19 years would be essentially foregone.
Matt shared the 6 recommendations. By restructuring the loans to a forgivable model, we can reduce long-term debt burden for the residents, allowing residents to build equity and ensure our federal resources are deployed to maximize community impact. This recommendation resolves our internal audit finding as well. It keeps us compliant with regulations while providing continued grant revenue to support HUD programs. The loans we are trying to collect on are costing us more to service than we are collecting, which isn't efficient. So it reduces our long-term cost with going this direction with the recommendation to bring it in-house. And then it brings administration of the remaining loans in-house, and it will not require any additional headcount by doing so. So we are open to take questions, and we will be asking for consensus.
How did you know? Thank you, Mayor. So I'm kind of struggling to understand how we have loans that are over 30 years old. How does that happen?
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Tolmachoff. It is a very common practice in this area to have these fully deferred loans. I've worked in other cities, and the reason that cities have chosen to do this with their HUD funding is that, one, it aligns administratively. So some loans have a requirement that you actually, or I should say some activities have a requirement that you secure the money for a certain period of time. Some cities, this one included in the past, decided to standardize that requirement across all activities, whether it was required or not. It is very common. Some cities like to have reduced investor activity, because technically, if you were to put money into somebody's house for like say a rehabilitation activity and you don't have to secure it, you're essentially handing them a grant. And so there's nothing to say that that homeowner or that person can't immediately sell that property for a profit. And the point of the program is to maintain affordable housing for low-income folks.
So I guess and I've been a licensed realtor for over 20 years. So most of these programs, there's a lien on the property, because somebody who's owned a property for 30 years, 20 years, even 10 years, the property value has appreciated. And so generally the money is repaid when the house sells. And it's really rare that somebody would occupy the same residence for 30 years. So there's no liens filed on any of these?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Tolmachoff, yes. The borrower signed a promissory note and a deed of trust, which is recorded at loan origination. And then if a homeowner was to sell, they, through that normal process, working through a title company, we would receive a payoff request, which we would issue with the current balance. Often those loans don't close, or the transaction fails for whatever reason, then we don't get the money. But any transaction that occurs through a title company, we are notified and we provide that.
So are you suggesting we release all of the current liens we have on all of these types of loans? Is that what this also includes?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Tolmachoff, no. It would be recharacterizing them from deferred or repayable to forgivable. So there's no immediate impact. It is basically a slow wind down of the current balances, as opposed to keeping existing loans on the books forever.
Okay, I'm getting confused. So, Mayor, if I could. So if it's forgivable, we don't have a lien position then, because we're going to forgive it, right? Or
no, we would still maintain. Mayor, Councilmember Tolmachoff, what we would do is we would work with the loan servicer to issue new promissory notes and deeds of trust to recharacterize that loan into that new structure.
okay. So I
And we
guess I
would
don't
have-
understand, why wouldn't we then, if we have liens and somebody's owned the home for 25 years and it's tripled in value or more than that, and I understand there's, but I mean, if somebody's had their house for 25 years, and they sell it, why wouldn't we want the taxpayers to get paid back? I understand that they're deferred and they're not making payments, but when the property closes escrow, we're in a position then to collect the money that the taxpayers loaned these people to get into this house. So I'm just trying to understand why would we stop doing that? I understand that there's some of them are forgivable, but to change everything over to forgivable when some of them there's liens on there because they were not forgivable, why we would not collect on those anyway?
Mayor, Councilmember Tolmachoff, that is an option for the council to consider. This is something that this arrangement, this structure is something that we felt was.
I guess my position is the lien position doesn't cost the existing homeowner anything. It only comes out of it just dispersed at close of escrow back to the city of Glendale. I mean, we're not going after their credit, we're not pursuing the loan, but if we just leave the lien in place, eventually the property is going to sell. And eventually, the city's going to get the money back. So I'm just not understanding. I understand the bookkeeping issues and all of that with pursuing payments and the work and where the effort is not. It's the juice isn't worth the squeeze on that. I understand. I get that part. But forgiving and just saying we're not going to collect when we already we're already in a position to collect sometime in the future when the property closes. I'm not sure I agree with that. Thank you, Mayor.
Excuse me, thank you. On slide 8, number 2, converting the deferred loans to forgivable with 30-year terms. Is that a new 30-year time span, or is it a 30-year time span based from when the deferred loan was originally placed?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Turner, that would be retroactive to the original date that the loan was created.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping. My recollection on some of these loans is they come with certain obligations, both for how the home could be used in the future. Some loans are given to improve a property on the condition that it remain owner occupied. And then conversely, some loans are given on the condition that the property remain a rental property to improve that base. So I assume that we probably still have a mix of those from back in the days. Will those conditions still exist on the property, or will they not?
Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Turner, yes, they would. The loans that we're discussing today are for homeowners. So we do have a handful of loans for like the low-income housing tax credit projects that are rental. Those loans will remain, those have a requirement to remain affordable over that period of time. And so those are not in discussion today. But those other terms that you're talking about, the obligation to, own, reside in as a primary residence and maintain, those would remain.
Okay, thank you. And for the loans that I was familiar with that were for rental properties, they weren't on low-income tax credit. They weren't for the major projects or really big investors. They were some that the city had done back in the day that really were for local homeowners that were buying a second property to rent or something like that. They were just little projects, and it was designed to combat blight in our older neighborhoods and improve the standard of living there. I think I can support this. The question was asked as to why we would do that, and on slide number 10 are the benefits that staff's identified as to that we would reap if we do this. I think it makes sense myself. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor and Council. I will admit that it took me quite a bit of time reading over this in order to understand exactly what it is that we are giving consensus for today.
So market practices, so to speak, and that's why one of the recommendations was to
Tax and insurance payments.
More money than we're receiving in return.
I understand that. I'm very familiar with loan servicing, but we were talking about staff hours. We're not managing the escrows. Us loan servicers managing the escrows. That's not being done by our staff.
Mayor, members of council, that's correct, but they would be now being serviced in-house. We would just be eliminating the escrow portion of it for these 18 loans.
Okay. After Councilmember Turner spoke, it brought up if there's a consensus to do this, are we going to go back through and have people certify that these properties are owner occupied, that they're not rental properties? Are we going to check the tax records and make sure that this is not a money-making business for the person who owns the property, who's now moved somewhere else and still has this property as a rental property? So are we going to do our due diligence to make sure that what we're doing is for owner-occupied properties, that's what this program was intended for?
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, Councilmember Tolmachoff, yes, that would be part of our transition plan, is to ensure that the person on the deed and the note is in fact the person who we're recharacterizing that loan, to ensure that is the same person. So yes, that would be part of our transition.
And then in the package are we going to require them to stay owner occupied for another? I mean, we're going to have to send something out, or they're going to have to record something. If there's going to be title work that needs to happen. So as part of that, are we going to have any requirement for, like, say, you're affirming that you're going to stay, this is going to stay an owner occupied property for another 5 years, 10 years, whatever we're going to require? Or once we're done, then they're free to, there's no more obligation to us once we're finished to turn it into a rental property?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure.
Mayor, I have a question.
What did you have a question?
You go ahead. Okay. Oh, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding what Councilmember Tomachoff said about the lien. So if they're going to turn the deferred accounts into forgivable accounts, there's not going to be a lien on the forgivable accounts? Or there still is going to be a lien, so if they sell the house, we'll get our money back?
Yes, Mayor, council members, Councilor Guzman, yes, all properties would have essentially new liens. So
Okay.
if the property, if it's a deferred loan or a payable loan and it becomes forgivable, then there will be a new promissory note recorded for every single one of those and a deed of trust recorded.
Okay, so we're not going to be losing funds.
The deed of trust would be the lien.
No, yes,
Yeah.
we would,
We still would.
because in the end, it's forgivable now,
Oh,
not deferred.
But again, it's
I mean, that's my
I
question.
know, I'm sorry. I'm confused.
Mayor, members of the council, again, maybe I can help clear this up again, but the idea here is to standardize these to 30 years, like a regular mortgage is. So if we have a loan that started in the 1970s and we still have it on the books, it's a 50-year loan. And it was forgivable or deferred at the time or not. So these that were deferred were never forgivable, but they may have been sitting out here for 50 years. So that's the smallest portion of them where we would say, if we standardize it, then after the 30 years was done, that loan is going to go, in a sense, go away. But those that are still in the buckets that haven't met that 30 years to where they'd be forgivable are going to remain, and the city's going to collect on those as the property either, sells or whatever. But when the 30 years is completed and the loan is forgivable, now it is forgivable, whatever that remaining balance is. So the idea is to standardize them so they're more like a typical mortgage, except for in some cases, excuse me, because of HUD and these requirements, they weren't set up to end after the 30 years, certain ones of them. Others were forgivable after 30 years, and the idea is just to make them all the same so that they're forgivable. Maybe it was only 15 years ago, and it still has 15 years to go. But if it was 50 years ago, who is there? Who owes what? Has the property changed hands and we never somehow knew or got a request for payoff? That's a long time to come in now after 50 years and tell this person that's in the house, well, because of this loan that was taken out 50 years ago, out of your escrow, we have to take $10,000 for the roof that was put there 50 years ago. That's the piece of it that we're trying to say. It doesn't really make very much sense for that property owner, and we don't really know. We don't know if it changed hands without us knowing. We're not, there just isn't very good records. So on those that we know and we have and we know the terms, we're just converting them over and we'll service them ourselves. And these that are really old, and that's part of the audit finding, they're gonna get forgiven after 30 years. So if it's 50 years old, it will come off the books. And on slide 9 is where it says, out of those deferred loans, yes, you're losing probably around $298,000, assuming that we could collect the $298,000 at some point in the future when that property changes hands again. So that's what we have the potential to lose by writing off essentially some loans that are more than 30 years old. Again, the idea is to make them standardized so that they are forgivable after the 30 years, the way the forgivable ones were in the first place. These are loans that no one was required to ever pay, and they're now very old. So the idea, again, are we losing a little bit of money potentially? Yes, but we're also saving money on the regular administration of these loans. So hopefully that helps clarify a little bit. But any loan that is less than 30 years old is going to remain the same way. We'll collect on it if the property changes hand. But 10 years from now, when it reaches its 30 years, it'll be forgivable at that point, whatever has remained unpaid.
Okay, now I understand. I thought we were forgiving all of them, even if they hadn't reached their 30 year. So I misunderstood, and that's why I was like, why are we doing that?
Yes, I that's why I thought, well, I thought, it sounds like we need some clarification, but it's interesting, Council Member and Mayor and Council Member Tomachoff, you started with, why do we have these loans that are more than 40 years old on the books? That's the question internal audit is asking. Why do you have these loans on your books And it's not standard practice when they compare it to what other entities have done. That roof or that air conditioner that loan helped that property owner with has probably been replaced again. So it just sort of doesn't make sense to leave them out there. But any that are less than 30 years, they're not forgivable. We'll treat them the same way. We're just now bringing that in-house so we save the difference in the amount of money that it takes to administer them.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a question for you, and then we're going to go to the vice mayor. Somebody, for instance, has a 28-year note that's been out there. They have 2 years left before it's paid off, and we're coming out and saying anybody with 30 years or more, we're going to basically forgive, but nobody else. What guarantee will we have that a year or 2 years from now we're not going to come back and say, well, yeah, but this guy? I mean, is it going to be rock solid and there is no exception? 28 years, you got to pay your note off. Going to have a lien on it, and if you sell your property, the city's going to be repaid. That's what I'm looking for, is some assurance that we don't keep doing this every year.
Mayor, members of the council, if you give us the consensus to move forward, then yes, we're going to bring you back. I believe it's a resolution stating all of these terms and how they'll be handled. And yes, if it's 28 years and someone says, well, I wasn't lucky enough to be less than the 30 years, that's the reality of the way this is going to work. Because we have to make a clear demarcation.
And that's what I wanted to hear. Go ahead.
I just want some clarifications on when these loans were issued and where the money came from and what guidelines we used when we issued those. So take me back 50 years ago when or let's go back a little less than that perhaps, and tell me how I got a deferred loan and what the government, where that money came from, and how we did that for a resident here in the Glendale.
Mayor, members of the council, these were all grant-funded loans, so it's not the city's money per se. And as Ms. Hall mentioned earlier, when the funds come back in the amount that we do get, which is less than $30,000 a year, on those that are making payments, that funding has to go back into a grant fund. So it's either CDBG or home or NSP.
Okay.
It's returned to whatever the original source was and then used for those same programs.
I assume the same, and that answers that part of the question. Then what I want to know is, what were the rules and regulations by the Fed when we got that money? How did we come up with this program? Did we have a lot of leeway in how we did this? Or are there guidelines the Fed said, when you get this money, you need to do loans this way, and it has to be deferred or has to be forgivable? Or how did we come up with that decision of how we did these loans?
Mayor, members of the council, that was dictated by HUD at the time that the loan was made or that program was developed, say in the 70s or 80s or whenever. And we have verified with HUD that changing them now and making them and standardizing them is allowable under the terms of those original grants.
Okay. So
we wouldn't be here if we had not confirmed that this is
very
all
good.
within current HUD guidelines.
Okay, very good. Based on the deferred loans of $2.2 million, that comes out to about $37,000 per home. I have concerns that same as Councilmember Tomachoff raised, that we don't have a windfall happening to people that have already rented them out or already have sold them, because apparently we haven't been keeping track. I don't know how they would have recorded a deed doing that. Supposedly we have a deed recorded. But I would really, to support this, and I get the point, and I would support this, but I really would like to see the portfolio. I'd like to know I don't want to see us getting a news report down the road that Glendale forgave all these loans, and then there's some millionaire that had 3 of them, and he just got a windfall. That's what I don't want to see. And so I would like to see that these properties are still owned by those people who we gave them the original documents to. And if they're not owned by them, or if they're renting them, because I believe under the current and prior guidelines, you weren't allowed to rent it out. You had to own or occupy it. I just feel like we need to get those answers before we can move forward with it. I don't have an objection doing it if those answers are there. Yeah.
So I've got one other thought, and it sort of coincides with I think their line of thinking. 50 years ago, it's highly likely that that person that may have taken out a loan 50 years ago might not be alive today. Strong possibility. And if that never officially was changed by title or anything else, the family just assumed it, and maybe that family has now turned it down to their kids. To me, in the nature of that loan, that wasn't supposed to be for the kids or grandkids. It was supposed to be for the original person that signed it. So I think that that's probably important too, that they didn't inherit something, never officially take it over, put it in their name, and that maybe their parents or grandparents, maybe it's still in their name and they're deceased. So I don't know how much work that's going to create, but again, we need to draw the line somewhere. I'm like Vice Mayor, I don't want to be having our statements read about that we're just giving away free money. That's the last thing I think any of us want. But at the same time, we need to clean it up so our general funds money aren't making up the difference if we're running short either. Question?
Yes, Mayor. I would like to give my consensus to move forward with this, with the stipulation that we get the information that the Vice Mayor is asking for, because obviously this is the workshop. And so when it comes to the City Council in terms of a resolution, I would like in the council report to include some of this information that the Vice Mayor is requesting, so that we can understand the scope before we make the decision at the official City Council meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
And we'll do that, and I'll ask for consensus in a little bit.
Mayor, just for clarification, seeing as these were HUD loans and apparently CDBG money and that sort of thing, all of these loans occurred in the census tracts that are in the poorest part of our community at the time, and to the best of my knowledge, remain the poorest parts of our community. Is that right?
Mayor, Councilmember Turner, that's correct. That they wouldn't have been eligible for these funding, or these sources of funding, had they not qualified and been in those census tracts. That's correct.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify that I agree with Councilmember Milner, and that was the point I was trying to make is, I mean, if these are for the program intent was for owner occupied properties. And so if we're doing our due diligence to make sure that before we process, we're going to have some sort of contact with all of these people, because they're going to have to sign title documents. That we do our due diligence to verify that these are not rental properties and that these are owner occupied. Apparently we just weren't filing liens, because it's not that hard to get paid if there's a lien on the property. I mean, anybody can file a lien on anything. So, but just do our due diligence to make sure, because even though it's only $300,000, it's still $300,000 that could be used. I mean, there's never enough money to go around with the programs that we offer our community. So, I mean, every dollar matters. And so if this is still for owner occupied properties, then I agree with that. But I want us to do our due diligence to make sure that we're not offering this to somebody who's had this property rented out for 10 years or something. Thank you.
We have consensus for them to move forward? Good? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Barr?
General plan rewrite, status, and overview.
Vice Mayor, shall I wait for the mayor?
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead, go.
Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, Council. We're very excited to be here, moving forward with the general plan full rewrite. The general plan is the guiding document, not just for planning, but for other departments in the city, county, and state that do any kind of infrastructure or population planning. Transportation is currently doing their long-range plan, their Vision Zero plan, and their airport master plan. The police department is doing a staffing study to understand where new densities and changes in demographics will modify their staffing needs. Fire, water, wastewater, and storm drain are planning for future infrastructure needs as well. You may have noticed with zoning actions, over the past few years, we've had many general plan amendments submitted because the general plan has not kept up with the trends and needs of the market. In 2014, when the last general plan kicked off, the city was not in good shape. And the development was very slow. The general plan adopted and ratified in 2016 was just an update of the previous general plan. Luckily, the city council had the foresight to prepare, including simplifying the annexation policy, which helped drive the 2020 boom in the Loop 303 corridor. We had no significant development in the Loop 303 corridor prior, and now are home to many Fortune 500 companies with thousands of employees over millions of square feet. But we've grown out to the outer western border, and now are looking in. Adaptive reuse, infill, and redevelopment projects are going to continue to increase, and the new state legislature is pushing affordable and dense housing. With the new ADU law and a new law that requires cities to provide free plans for homes, duplexes, triplexes, and ADUs. This is something you'll see in a workshop coming up. And new middle housing laws, new multifamily housing laws. They're all pushing towards the same direction, which is density. We do not have new large parcels of land for new subdivisions. Our last 5 are building out. Village at Thunderbird and Stonehaven are nearly built out. Zanjero Pass and Allen Ranches are well underway. And Northern and 75th is our last 300 to 400 home subdivision. Our future population growth will come in infill density and new multi-story buildings. There's still plenty of future growth, we just need to plan for it differently. So how do we move forward? I'll share a quick summary, and then Dwayne and Bren with the Matrix team will provide details and timelines. The state law requires the city have early and continuous public participation and adopt the general plan by the end of 2026, which is 10 years from our last adoption. The plan moving forward is designed to seek feedback from the public and to provide a myriad of options for early and continuous participation. This begins and ends with the City Council. Council will have 3 workshops, including the one we're at today, and a voting meeting at the end, which is also required by law. City Council will also have interviews. Matrix will interview individual council members directly. The Planning Commission is the recommending body and is required by state law to hold at least 2 public meetings. We're planning for 3 public meetings with the Planning Commission. There'll also be a steering committee. The 7 planning commissioners are the representatives from each district that use the general plan the most, as it's the guiding document for many of the cases they see each month. There'll also be a handful of directors and a handful of subject matter experts to keep the document moving forward. The steering committee meetings will have public comments and comply with the early and continuous public participation required by law. There will also be community meetings, which are 9 charrettes across the city throughout the process for all community members to have a hands-on opportunity. And finally, there are focus groups, subject matter experts in different fields for specific focus groups. So here's the vision. Information from the community meetings, from the focus groups, and from the interviews are organized into broad areas and refined into general plan categories by the steering committee and Matrix. The draft is then presented to Planning Commission and then City Council in workshops for feedback. And then this cycle starts again, where it goes back out to the community, more charrettes, more focus groups, and the draft is then refined, brought back to Planning Commission and City Council, and then it's done again. So over the course of this year, it'll happen 3 times, culminating in the final document. Now let me hand it over to Dwayne and the Matrix team, as they have a lot of experience developing comprehensive plans, and they'll walk you through the process.
Thank you, Mr. Huggins. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm going to do a brief overview of the general plan, planning and processes, scope and schedule, and the public and stakeholder engagement strategies that Mr. Huggins had alluded to in his summary. The general plan is updated every 10 years by state statute. It sets the city's direction through city council approved policies and goals. It drives land use decisions, including zoning, gives other city departments an understanding of how the city is planning to grow so they can align their capital improvements with that. No one here is a soothsayer. We don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future, but we can give our best guess. And this document is there to provide the framework for other departments to use in order to form their capital improvement program. This project can generally be broken down into 5 phases. It's easy to understand it in 5 phases. Just understand that there are multiple phases moving on at once. For instance, policy development is happening throughout the process. Drafting the plan is happening throughout the process. We don't wait for the policy to be developed and then start writing the plan. Everything's moving all at once with the continuous feedback from the community, council, commission, and the committees, as Randy laid out. Excuse me. But it's important to keep in mind, the general plan just paints a picture of where we want to be and how we want to function in the long term. In this case, it's 25 years. In 25 years, what do we want the city of Glendale to look like and function? We're in the initiation phase. We're really on the ground floor. This is the we have already done a lot of data collection analysis. This is the initiation of the stakeholder and public engagement. Excuse me. So we're focusing on, as Randy said, a strategic growth pattern. We're looking at balancing not only our city's expansion, but also our infill redevelopment and adaptive reuse. Some of this is prompted by state statute. A lot of this is just the physical reality of the city. The communication and engagement. The project team is coordinating with other department plans, as Randy had mentioned. So department, police service study, any environmental plans, to ensure that the plans are talking to each other, make sure they align with one another. We don't want the transportation plan to say we're going to expand capacity this way when we're planning on growth going a different way. And we're also coordinating our engagement with the other plans to ensure that there isn't a fatigue. So we have half a dozen or more plans going on at the same time. So in our electronic and as well as our traditional media outreach, we are coordinating with these other teams to where we can possibly have a more open house forum across plans. People get really worn down, particularly folks that are active in the community. So, okay, well, then I already attend this plan. Well, no, this is this plan, the different plan. You were at the transportation plan, now we're at the general plan. And how is that different than the airport plan? This is to reduce that to provide a remedy to that redundancy. There are 5 groups critical to the general plan's success. Of course, there's City Council and Planning Commission. The community, where the vast majority of feedback will be coming from. We have focus groups that are focused on the elements of the general plan. So in state statute, I think there's 17 required elements that each general plan that every city has to address. So these focus groups will align with those. The steering committee is going to serve as the technical advisory group. And I'll go into further detail on these, each of these groups. Starting with the steering committee, it's headed by the consultant and you can think of it as a stress test for the document. So as feedback comes in, the committee reviews the feedback, the policy direction from council, commission, the community, all the other various groups. It's taken and molded into something that is an actionable document. So, for instance, the intended composition here is the planning commission would represent the council, and they review the general plan at least on a monthly basis. That's one of their primary functions, is to review and recommend general plan amendments. Community experts would then, community subject matter experts would be from groups that the city departments work with all the time, whether it's from the community services department, transportation department, the planning department, for instance, historic preservation or community service groups. Very often these are representatives of other larger community groups. And then staff would be directors or their designees, right? So staff would then play like a referee. They would distill it down into actionable items that those departments can use. It's great to have a policy document that says here's where we want to be in 25 years, but if none of it translates to how the city operates, then you have a paperweight. We want to make sure it's something that can be implemented and actionable. There'll be 8 to 10 focus groups that'll address the plan elements and the practical realities of those policies. For instance, business climate, housing, military compatibility, all these really big chunks issues that we have in the city of Glendale. Again, we want something that's actionable. So we want these folks to be able to give us the real deal, right? It's like, hey, I run this business, this would impact it in this way. Really having that on the ground, your implementation of this will have this impact. That is the purpose of the focus group. Excuse me. Tentative focus areas of those groups, there are 10 groups listed here in front of you. We're still trying to combine like groups and really refine what that looks like, because we want to be cognizant of everyone's time. Something like a focus group or a committee is a huge time commitment, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time and schedule. Key council actions in the planning process, as Randy summarized earlier, is a series of workshops where the council will review and direct policy. So when the consultant comes back and says, hey, here's our 35% draft, this has been through committee, this has been through the focus groups, this has been through all these reviews, bounced off of staff, it will then come to a workshop where council and the planning commission will have direct feedback and input into the plan. And at the end, there will be 3 public hearings for the recommendation and approval of the plan before the ratification of the plan. Now, the heaviest lift for the planning team is the robust community and stakeholder engagement strategy. Like I mentioned before, this happens throughout the entire process, but these are the tent poles, right? So community meetings, there'll be community meetings with pop-up opportunities where feasible. What a pop-up opportunity would be, for instance, a council district meeting or a community event that we can quickly pop up a table, right? And disseminate literature and answer questions. The next is the social media digital outreach community surveys. The plan will have a website that will host an interactive comment map, a community survey, and any literature developed in the process. There'll be meeting notes, really anything that's produced by a community meeting, a pop-up meeting, those kinds of interactions, that kind of feedback will be documented. Now, I know it's a lot to digest, and I know I went a little fast. However, luckily we have the Matrix team lead, Brendan Cox, to kind of break it into timeframes, maybe a little bit more digestible to get an idea of the tentative timeline and how each of those elements that Randy and I have covered fit into it. Pass it off to Bren.
Good afternoon. Test. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. Thanks, Dwayne. So the schedule we've developed it can be fluid throughout the process. This is our tentative schedule right now as we've been working with the planning department and other city departments and some other stakeholders. So as Randy and Dwayne mentioned, we're in the initiation phase right now, but we've been doing a lot of work on the back end to collect materials, interview city department staff, and get a baseline of information. So as we get into the April-May timeframe is when we start moving into the second phase, which is visioning. At that time, when we have our first community event, we'll be bringing some of our findings, baseline conditions from our background research and department meetings to the community so they can understand some of the trends that the community's seen over the past 10 years, potentially where those may lead to the future. And then as we get into our first community engagement, we'll have different activities to start developing some of that visioning from the community's perspective. So the visioning will kind of have three different buckets. We'll have focus group, steering committee opportunities. We'll have city staff, city leadership opportunities, and then public at-large opportunities. So when we get into our community meetings, as Randy mentioned, there will be 9 throughout the process, but really it's 3 sets of meetings. So each set will be at one of the key phases, and each set will have 3 geographic meetings throughout the city to give broader attendance opportunities based on where people are living. And then as you'll see, each of the opportunities where we have a community meeting, we have a subsequent council and planning commission workshop. So those will be a little bit lagging behind the community meeting so that we have time to prepare all the findings from the community to then bring that forward to your groups as well. And then when we get into the summer, we'll start moving into the policy phase. So at the second set of community meetings is where we'll bring some initial draft goals and policies based on the information that we've gathered in the previous phases. We'll have some opportunities for the community to review what we're proposing for some of those goals and policies and have discussion. They can help us shape some of those as well based on the outcomes from the information we received from the questionnaires and that online comment mapping tool. And then as we move into late summer, that's when, after we've collected the information from the first 2 sets of community meetings, we'll be working with the city departments to develop that administrative draft plan, as well as having the steering committee review components of that to provide information, serving as representatives from their organizations as well. As we get into fall, we'll move into the 60-day public review period. So the state legislation requires that general plans go through a 60-day public review period. So it will be posted on the project website. We'll have some hard copies available at city facilities as well. So if people want to come in, view a hard copy, they can maybe go to the library, city Development Services Department, City Hall, and view that and provide comments directly through there, and then the city staff can deliver those to us as well. Public comments will have different avenues that they can submit comments through the website and through the community events as well, and then at the Development Services Department. Then when we get into after the 60-day review period is complete, our team will compile all the comments received and work with city staff to adjudicate those into the document. And we'll develop the draft final plan that will then be brought to Planning Commission and City Council for public hearings. And state law requires that after council adopts the plan, it go to voters for final ratification. So that will occur in the 2027 ballot cycle. I will pass it back over to Randy.
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What happens if the council comes up with what we believe is a good general plan? We put it out there, it goes to the ballot, and the voters say, "No, we don't like it." What happens?
In that case, then there's few different options. You could choose to continue with your current plan, the 2016 plan. We could go back and make revisions to the new update and then bring it back for voter ratification again. So obviously, those are bad options. We want to avoid those. So as we work throughout the process, we want to make sure that we're getting good information out into the community so that they're going to be supportive of the plan. We're, with our steering committee and focus groups, we're hoping that they can be representatives into the community for their groups as well to help spread information and keep the community engaged throughout the process so that when we get to that point, we'll have support from the community.
Right. No, and you answered my question, but again, even if it reverted back to what we're currently operating under now, it still has to be voted on and approved, right? The vote is still the final. There's always going to be a vote. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, correct. So under state statute, if the voters do not approve the plan, it would then come back to staff for revision. We do another set of community meetings and try again. In the meantime, the previous plan remains in effect.
Okay. All right. So my other question, and we went through this, a few of us went through this 11, 12 years ago. I think you guys...
2016, I think, wasn't it? 2016?
Yeah, and I think it was the previous year before while we were doing all of it. But, the ironic part about all this is really what this just falls into is the fact that we're making the best guess we can make. And even if we're way off, not even close, that doesn't change anything. We do the best we can. We come back and we bring it to council, and we have to make adaptions to this. So it's ironic that our city has now gotten to a point where we're almost grown out, and so this is far less important as it was in the cities where they have lots of growth potential left to keep moving out. But what's more ironic is the fact, not more ironic, the fact that the legislature continues to keep changing the goalposts on us. As we decide how we want to do things, knowing what the laws currently are now, as they have a couple of years ago, came back and changed the rezoning, took the rights away from the cities and said, no, you can put multi-homes on the same property. It really changes this tremendously. The fact that we now have cars driving around without people in them, that changes the way we have to worry about our traffic lights, our parking. So, the best we can do is the best we can do. It's not like we have a crystal ball. We do the best. But if we come up with a perfect plan, I guarantee you, in a short time, we're going to find little faults and we're going to have to make corrections as we go along. It's a very, very long, trying process. A lot of people really get wrapped around the axle on this. But it's nice to see people engaged. What I really love is the fact that we have people on a current commission right now that deal with these type of things daily, and so looking forward to them being even more engaged in this. You have a question?
I do have a few questions, Mayor. Thank you. So you're basically going to be calling for the council to approve a special election in 2027? It's an off-cycle year. Is that that's what I see here?
Mayor, Councilwoman, that's correct.
So, pardon me?
Go ahead.
I know we don't have time, but why then, I guess, I mean, we have plenty of time to go through the process. I'm not so sure. I mean, I don't know what I don't know what the statistics are, show what kind of voters are going to show up in a 2027 election as opposed to what kind of voters are going to show up. And there's a lot to consider before we say, yeah, we're good with that, because and I don't know if the consultant's familiar with this, but I would like to be well aware, going in with our eyes wide open, whether it's a good idea to run a general plan in a special election. I would want to know what the statistics are on that, what type of likely voters are there going to be, all of that kind of stuff, because it could be risky. So we generally have a pretty good idea of the voters that turn out for special election. Probably be an all-mail ballot, but not everybody, as we know, votes in all-mail ballot elections, and generally we get a broader range of voters in a general election than we do in a special election. So that's the first thing I want to say, is we better be sure that that's the right thing to do. I mean, I know you guys put that up there, but the political nuts and bolts of running a special election for this, I want to make sure we clearly understand before we move ahead with that. That being said, the steering committee I want to talk about, I was made aware of, as a committee, I guess my first question is the steering committee already formed? Because I heard from people in the community before we even knew this was happening, late January, early February, Rotary Club presidents, Kiwanis Club presidents that were being invited to attend the first general plan steering committee meeting. I guess that's already happened. Did that meeting happen on February 18th? And I just want to understand is, where are we with this steering committee?
Mayor, Councilwoman Tomachoff, the meeting did not happen. The goal of the meeting and the reach out from Matrix was to start looking for people who could participate in something like a steering committee or a focus group. It's going to take a lot of time and effort from them over a long period of time. So we wanted to make sure we were reaching out to a significant amount of groups that were parts of the community in different areas, but also would have the capabilities to participate through the whole process.
So are they going to be working with the council where we could make recommendations of members in our community, maybe not even residents, but members of business owners and other people in our community, developers and other people that we feel like would be a benefit to the committee? I haven't heard from anybody, but I mean, I'm not sure exactly how you're going to fill this committee. I'd like to understand how you're moving forward with that.
Mayor, Councilman Tomachoff, one of the requests at the end of this meeting was going to be to ask council, specifically for the focus groups, if they had people who they would like to offer as potential members of the focus groups, especially if they have members in specific areas like transportation or redevelopment or things like that that are going to be big portions of the plan. Similar with the steering committee, we were going to use members of the community, but they were generally going to be to help take the information that was brought in and focus it into the general plan areas, because we're going to get a lot of broad ideas. They're going to be all over the place, and somehow we have to rebrand them or rebring that back in to coordinate them so it comes into a draft that we can actually follow. So we thought that the focus groups were really going to be the biggest part that gives us really detailed information in specific areas.
Okay, Mayor, if I could continue on slide 7, it says that the steering committee is the technical advisory throughout the process and document focus. So you'd want people with some sort of expertise, I would imagine, on the steering committee. So I mean, for me, it would be helpful if you could send a memo saying we need to fill these committees. These are the characteristics or experience or whatever of the people that are a good fit for the focus groups, that are a good fit for the steering committee, so that, I mean, I don't want to start shouting out names in a public meeting. I mean, we have to coordinate with our residents and people that we know. I would imagine you need I guess I'm not really understanding the difference between the focus group and the steering committee. Are they both technical experts, or the technical experts on the steering committee would be in a 30,000-foot level view of things, and focus groups are technical experts in specific areas of transportation and development and those kinds of things?
Mayor, Councilmember Tomachoff. So for example, one of the focus groups, let's say, could be related to transportation, bicycles, transit, things like that. So there would be groups from maybe ADOT, from bus systems, from different groups like that are actually experts in the area. It doesn't have to be all experts, so there can be other people involved. The person that would be in the steering committee would probably just be one person who understands transportation, plus the director from the city's transportation department and the planning commissioners. That group would just be taking the information they're getting from the special, the focus groups and from the charrettes and compiling that so that it makes sense when it gets built into the plan.
Okay, that makes sense. Mayor, I have one more question. So, I mean, I know it's not the budget's not really part of this, but then when you're having people put in, you know, like saying, we want to run bus routes all over the place. I mean, there's also financial constraints on things the city can actually do. So how does that play a part in this?
Mayor, Councilwoman Tomchoff, that's part of the steering committee's goal and working with Matrix is to bring this in. And then the very first thing we do when there's a concept is bring it to Planning Commission for a workshop and then City Council so that those things will be discussed early before we move forward with the plan and get too deep into something that may have a financial impact.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor? On the timeline of this, once it starts, is there something in the ARS that says that it has to be completed by a certain amount of time?
Mayor, Councilmember Guzman, yes, the statute says the adoption has to happen within 10 years of the previous adoption. So that previous adoption was in 2016. So we need to adopt something by the end of this year. Now, the ratification is the part the mayor had brought up. Ratification is not up to the council, it's up to the people. So we aren't held to the ratification, just the adoption of the actual general plan.
So we could adopt it in 27 and hold it until 20, no, we can't.
No, we have to adopt it in
No.
26.
Adopt it in 26.
Yes, but we can't get
ratify
around
later.
it then. We can't get around having a special election.
Yeah, we can.
Mr. Mayor,
We can
members
still
of
vote.
the council,
That's what
when
I'm
it comes to the adoption and the ratification, there can be a huge time separation there. The adoption within a reasonable amount of time of the previous adoption within 10 years, well, right around 10 years, that part where we can hit as staff. Now, the ratification and to the point of a 27 election, calling a special election, per the statute, it says the following election. So it would be either 28, so we adopt, meet the statute, and we adopt in 28. In that time, there would be, staff could make any adjustments as necessary to it within the confines of state statute and direction of the council. But the statute does lay out it's the next election.
So we don't
Now,
have to call a special election?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, no, it is not a requirement for council to call a special election. It just gives it as an option.
Okay, thank you.
And if I could just follow up with one other thing, the problem with this is a hope list, a wish list. I mean, that's really what it is. It's in a perfect world, these are the things that we'd like to see happen without, and we're all guessing. Everybody is guessing what they think the future is going to bring. We don't know. And where people really get wrapped around the axle on is that a lot of times people forget that this is a wish list. It's not factual. It's not has to happen. So, and I think we recently had a lawsuit situation similar where they were trying to say, well, this is what you said you were going to do. No. In a perfect world, this is what we'd like to do, but it's not a perfect world. So that's the thing that I think everybody needs to kind of remember. It's more important for the younger cities that still have a lot of growth on new land than it is for an established city that's really pushing its borders right now. So you had a question? Go ahead.
Yes, I just have a timeline question for staff. Why didn't we do this last year in anticipation for ratification in 2026?
Mayor, Councilmember, we intended to, we fell a little bit behind. We had some transitions in our leadership. We did hire some new employees. Dwayne Hoskins, we've had him for about a year now, so he has taken this role over and is leading for the city, and we've finished the RFP. We could have done it a little bit sooner, but because of the way that this has happened, this is where we're at now.
Thank you, Mayor. So my question is, what are we going to do to include renters, young people, different perspectives, and people who generally are not included in these important conversations? Because we're determining the future of Glendale for the next 10 years, just like the mayor said. And also, can we commit to focus groups for those types of communities, or potentially a seat on the steering committee?
Mayor, council members. So that's part of our process we're going through right now, is looking at opportunities to engage some of those different organizations. So as we've been meeting with city departments, we've asked them, how do they get the word out to some of those organizations? We've spoken with the school district to see if they have some mailing lists that we can, when we get to the point of engaging with community, can we send out maybe some information through their opportunities as well? If there's some other mechanisms that go out to community mailing groups that we've met with city departments, looking to leverage those. We've talked to the community housing department as well to see what avenues they have to get some information out. And that could be an opportunity as well as we start with our focus groups and steering committee engagement. We want to leverage any relationships they have with community groups to help get the word out as well. So we're definitely open to any mechanisms that from your group as well.
Mayor and members of the council, at the get-go, it was the intent to engage the community across all facets. It was made a very clear point in the RFP that it would be community-derived, I think is probably the best term for it, to include youth, underprivileged, those who, how do we engage those who normally don't participate in this process? To really decentralize and democratize it insofar as the outreach. And Bren's team has developed some strategies. They've reached out to numerous organizations to try and engage them. And frankly, a lot of it's going to be learn as we go. It's like, hey, here's the great idea. Let's start here with the engagement, and we see what works, what doesn't. That's why it's so robust. There's 3 community meetings, 9 locations. The idea is to get all of that feedback. And if we find a way that isn't really working, the intent is to get, the youth or underserviced communities. Homelessness is a hard one. If something that we're trying isn't working, we have the flexibility to try something else. And if we still at the very end, because sometimes, especially particularly when you have planning fatigue, and you have a lot of plans going on at the same time, a lot of people disengage. So when that comes up, then it'll be like, okay, well, maybe we need to reassess and start over. Maybe we need to add some community meetings. Maybe we need to tailor our strategy a little bit more in, a certain regard to reach those people. So it was very much a central part of the public and stakeholder engagement plan.
Yes, and my final question is, in terms of this process, I'm really looking forward to seeing different solutions and different things that other similarly sized cities have been doing across the country, especially getting more research, understanding what they did, how they implemented it, etc. So if we can bring in comparable data of other municipalities that are within our population size and kind of similar to Glendale, it'd be really good so that we can understand what innovative policies or what innovative plans can we put into here that could potentially have the backing of things that have already been done in other cities. Thank you.
What do you need?
That was it, Mayor.
Don't need anything?
There's no consensus requested.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. 4 items for you tonight. First, the Glendale Main Library was the first stop in the valley for the Road to 250 Arizona Traveling Museum. This free interactive exhibit explored both American and Arizona history. It even featured a replica of the Liberty Bell. The museum is currently touring communities across Arizona and will eventually be at the Arizona State Capitol. Bonsall Park ribbon cutting ceremony was a success, celebrating an upgraded amenity in our park system. The project reflects council's continued commitment to investing in spaces that serve our community. Upgrades included a restored F-100 fighter plane that had been donated by Luke Air Force Base in 1973, as well as new trees and sports courts. The expanded room at the Heroes Regional Park Library is officially opened. It adds more than 2,000 square feet of new space. The room will support additional programming while providing more reservable meeting space for community use. And lastly, we appreciate the Glendale Police Department's recent efforts to keep our roads even safer. Officers launched a special 5-officer patrol team focused on distracted driving. Using both marked and unmarked vehicle, the team has already conducted 76 traffic stops and issued 44 speeding violations. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Michael?
No report, thank you.
Thank you. Council items of special interest, Mr. Baldenegro.
Nothing today, sir.
Councilmember Conscious.
Yes, Mayor and colleagues, I'm requesting a formal review and analysis regarding the potential impacts to Glendale's automatic aid system stemming from the proposed federal detention facility in Surprise, specifically referring to the correspondence between Congressman Paul Gosar and the Department of Homeland Security. In the Congressman's letter, DHS was asked how the agency would ensure adequate access to emergency medical services, fire protection, and law enforcement support without straining local resources. DHS responded that it would operate a fully staffed medical unit for primary care, maintain cooperative partnerships with local fire and EMS agencies, and reimburse local partners for medical care and medical services provided. While the response addressed medical reimbursement at a general level, it does not address the broader operational impacts to regional fire and EMS deployment, particularly with our automatic aid system. As the Glendale City Council, our responsibility is to ensure that Glendale residents continue to receive timely emergency response and that our taxpayers are not exposed to unanticipated financial burdens. Accordingly, I'm requesting that staff provide the City Council with either a memo or a workshop discussion to address the following: projected impacts to the automatic aid system, including potential changes to unit hour utilization and coverage reliability, analysis of whether Glendale response times could be affected, modeling of potential increases in regional EMS and fire call volume, fiscal exposure to the City of Glendale if our units respond directly or indirectly, clarification of reimbursement mechanisms, including eligibility, timelines, and full cost recovery, any existing or proposed intergovernmental agreements related to this matter. This request is not about inhumane immigration detention conditions inside the facility. It is about protecting public safety performance standards and ensuring fiscal responsibility. The strength of our automatic aid system lies in reliability and shared regional commitment. If 1,500 beds are introduced into the system, we must fully understand its operational and financial impacts before assumptions are made. Our residents expect that when they call 911, help arrives quickly, particularly within 4 minutes. It is our duty to ensure that remains true. Thank you.
Councilmember Guzman.
Nothing today, sir.
Councilmember Tomachoff.
Nothing today, Mayor.
Councilmember Turner.
Not today, Mayor.
Vice Mayor.
Nothing today, Mayor.
I have nothing. Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, vote nay. Here, the ayes have it. We're in exec.